everybody, welcome back to Yard Sale Squad. In today's video, we are going to recreate some of my favorite items from Chipotle's menu. Of course, there are so many things we could create. I have done some fajita peppers. I've done a really great recipe for black beans in the Instant Pot, and I will link that one down below, even though we're not going to make it today. But everything that we make today will be either linked down below or typed up in the description. So for today, we are going to be creating a cilantro lime chicken. It's going to be marinated, and that's going to make it really tender, and it's going to reheat really well. So this is a really great thing for meal prepping throughout the week. And then we are also going to make a delicious corn salsa. It's got just a tiny bit of heat and it's got some sweetness to it. And then we are going to make a zesty, flavorful guacamole. And of course, to go with that, we will have sour cream, we will have some tortillas, we will have some jasmine rice. So let's go ahead and get started. So I have juiced up my limes, and now I am rinsing the cilantro. It's always important to rinse your cilantro whenever you are cooking because it can be really susceptible to hang on to sand. And I've actually heard of people having this gritty texture to their food because they didn't know that cilantro can hold on to that. Now, one thing important to note is for this chicken recipe, you actually can put all of your ingredients in the blender. That's what it calls for you to do. Sometimes I do that, and then sometimes like today, I say, I don't really want to dirty up my blender and the blades for it and all of that stuff, so I'm just going to put it in a Ziploc bag. It's really just kind of whatever you're in the mood for. But doing it that way does create a finer texture to your cilantro, whereas here I'm going to be chopping it by hand. It is still a fine chop, but anyway, that's just kind of what the recipe calls for, but now you know that you can also do it this way and achieve good results. So once you have all of your ingredients assembled, we're just going to add them to a bowl or a bag so that we can marinate this chicken. So it begins with that lime juice and some olive oil, and then we add in some salt and some cumin and the cilantro. It's really so basic, so easy. Most of these ingredients I already usually have. And it doesn't take a lot of marinade to achieve this. It's really not a large amount of ingredients. This chicken recipe is one that I have made for having company over. I've made it for 4th of July cookouts, and it always gets rave reviews. People always ask for the recipe, and I think it's just because it really is so flavorful. It's so juicy, always a win. And then the last ingredient that I forgot to include is it does have garlic. Now, sometimes I will use the jarred minced garlic, and then sometimes if I have fresh like I do today, then that's what I will do. So I'm just going to do a quick mince to that garlic and then add it to my bag of ingredients. Now, I'm not going to make you look at raw chicken very much, but what I will say is that whenever I have a large bag of protein, I will go ahead and portion it out. So today I'm going to be chopping up the chicken that I'm using for this marinade. And then as I'm doing that, I'm also going ahead and finishing up the rest of that package and putting it in a separate bag. This way I know that I have this for another recipe down the road. And usually I'll just go ahead and stick this in the freezer. That way I'm guaranteed that I'm not going to forget about it. I'm not going to waste it. And the freezer really just kind of holds on to it for the time being, and I don't have to think about it. If there's one thing that I can do to help myself a little bit in the kitchen, I'm definitely going to do that. So just give your chicken a little stir around, make sure everything's evenly coated, and then we're going to put it in the fridge so it can do its thing. All right, we're going to hop right into prepping the corn salsa. We begin with red onion. This time I'm using some frozen. Again, I had this from a previous recipe, and I didn't use all the onions, so I chopped and froze the other half. So you can definitely use fresh or frozen, but that is half of a red onion. And then we're going to go in with a jalapeno. So a little story that I'll tell you is that I tried a copycat recipe of corn salsa once before, and it was very labor intensive, and honestly, it didn't taste very much like the corn salsa at Chipotle at all. So through process of experimenting, this is what we have found to be an effective recipe. You begin with 1 bag of Pictsweet white corn frozen, and we cook that in water on the stove until it's bubbly and then drain it. We add it to this bowl, and in that bowl I have some of the diced cilantro. I have a diced jalapeno that I have removed the seeds and the veins from. If you like more heat, then you can leave some of that in, totally up to you. We have the onion, and then this is what we have found to be the secret ingredient. Chipotle claims to not have sugar in their corn salsa, and I'm not claiming that to be an untruth, but what I am telling you is that adding 2 to 4 tablespoons of sugar to your corn salsa is really just going to set it over the top. So once you add that sugar and lime juice and a little bit of salt, just give it a stir and your corn salsa is ready to go. All right, we're moving on to guacamole. Today, we did not have stellar avocados, and when life gives you avocados with brown spots, you just work around them. You just work around them and you make guacamole. So you can quote me on that. We're going to use the brown avocados anyway. We're going to get around the brown bits, and we're going to add lime juice and salt. This guacamole originally comes from the All Recipes website, and again, it will be linked down below. But there's really 2 phases. So there's the phase of mashing the garlic with lime juice and salt, and then there's the phase of adding your toppings. So I don't personally add cilantro to the guacamole. I think maybe this cilantro I'm chopping was for the corn salsa. But I do usually add tomatoes and garlic and onion. So you can see here just how beautiful the contrast of colors is in the corn salsa. You can use white onion if you want to, but I would encourage the red solely because of how pretty it looks in the bowl. And this makes a good large amount. This is delicious in bowls, in a wrap, but also just with a corn chip. I could eat this whole bowl by myself. And then here is our guacamole. Now, let me give you a couple of guacamole tips to keep it from turning brown. So the first one is when you store it in the fridge, you can actually leave your pits in the guacamole, and that will actually help to keep the color. Also, you can put your plastic wrap all the way touching the guacamole. That's my best tip. And that will allow not as much oxidation, and then it won't turn brown. So definitely make sure that you have plastic wrap touching your guacamole, even if you have a bowl with a lid or a container with a lid. Make sure that plastic wrap is all the way touching. This guacamole has lasted for days just by doing these simple tips. And of course, the lime juice in there also helps to kind of preserve that color. All right, you guys, so we grill ours on an indoor griddle pan, and yes, it does get kind of messy. We just wash it. And then here is our jasmine rice. You can certainly grill that chicken on the grill outside, and it'll do just fine as well. But we absolutely love jasmine rice in this house. We eat it all of the time. And so I'm just making a burrito here, and let me tell you, it was some kind of delicious. It was so good. On this particular night, we had to leave to go do a baseball game, so I kind of had to stop everything where it was and then come back and pick it all up. And does that plate not look delicious? It was so good. I love making all of this. This is one of those meals that requires some prep on the front end, but then when it comes time for mealtime, everything is just assembled really quickly because you've done that work beforehand. Thank you guys so much for stopping by Yard Sale Squad, and I will be talking to you soon.